Good evening, everyone that God and true parents love so dearly. It is your bestest loving friend, Benjy here. Today is my birthday, my friends. I, my friends, am one of those people that never tells anybody my birthday when I'm at a workshop. Currently, today is August 8th. Usually, I have my birthday at workshops. In fact, most of the birthdays I've had in my life have either been at a workshop or abroad because it's in the summertime. The reason I'm sharing this is because I have made this list of 31 life lessons that I am imparting onto my 21-year-old self. And this list has been shared. I've been sharing it on Facebook and Instagram with some lovely young folks. And it's been insightful and helpful for people so far. So I'm here to share it with you in the hopes that it will be well worth your time. I'm going to go through this list and actually give some insight and some depth into what I'm talking about here. By the way, guys, the reason I do this is because actually I genuinely do talk to myself 10 years ago. I do sometimes. And I do that because, number one, I like to give comfort to my past self. You know, the constant up and down emotional roller coasters and anxieties and uncertainties about the future that I face, that many of you are facing. But also importantly, I do this because it gives comfort to my present self, because then I can extrapolate this feeling of gratitude and imparting wisdom onto my future self. And I think, of all the things that I usually tell my past self from 10 years ago, usually it's around the realm to the extent of, don't worry, Benjy, everything will be okay. Relax, enjoy your life, enjoy the ride, do your best, work hard, and everything works out, right? And that's kind of what I tell myself 10 years ago. And if I extrapolate that into my 41-year-old self, and I think all the things that I'm stressed or struggling with now regarding, you know, life and busyness and mission and helping people and raising my kids, all the things that I'm uncertain about currently, in 10 years from now, I would die and kill to be able to come back and impart the same wisdom that I would want to give to my 10-year-old version or 21-year-old version, right? I would love if somebody could come back and say, Benjy, relax, you're doing fine. Just keep going, just keep working. And that kind of peace of mind that I get from this mental exercise, it's something that I very much value. And I value peace of mind so much so that I'm hoping that it's somewhat valuable to you guys as well, okay? So I'm going to read these one by one off to you guys, and also going to have some commentary on what I was thinking when I wrote this. By the way, guys, I put this in random order, and I made this entire list in about 15 to 20 minutes. So there you go. Okay, number one, very few things matter in life, okay? Relationships are one of those things. Focus on that, and everything else will work as a result. And I genuinely believe this, because if we look at life from the perspective, and if we zoom out to all of eternity in the universe and spirit world, when you pass on to the afterlife, what are the things that you are going to be most proud of and also have the most regret around? More than likely, they're going to be relationships. It's the love that you experience. And as our true father, true parents have emphasized, love is really the only thing that we take with us in spirit world. It's not our looks. It's not the money we make. It's none of that. It's actually, in fact, the relationships, the connections that we bring with us. So if that is priority number one, eternally speaking, in a zoomed out 1,000-foot perspective, then one of the very few things that matters in life is the relationships. And I believe that has been the case. The more I've focused on my marriage with my wife, with my children, with my parents, with the people around me, with my coworkers, with people in my community, my faith community, and elsewhere, the more life just kind of unfolds itself, because then you have help and support and perspectives that you wouldn't otherwise have on your own. Okay, number two, the fastest way to grow is to get married and to have kids. Now, I say this because sometimes I talk with folks who are on the side or in the camp of like, I don't understand, and I can't tell you guys how many times I've heard this from people. I don't understand the benefit of having children. I don't understand the benefit of having marriage, a wife, a husband, right? And it's a really interesting thing. And I had a really hard time explaining this to people. And I think the most clear explanation I have is, if your number one priority in life is to have fun and be happy, then yeah, it makes sense that kids is not a priority for you, right? It's a big inconvenience and a big wrench in your life, your lifestyle of eternal bliss and happiness. But on the other hand, if you're someone like me and your number one priority is God, and your number one priority is the spiritual, the internal, and growth, and for me to resemble the unconditional love of God, that's my number one priority in life. So naturally, I am gravitated towards things that will help me grow. And the next natural question that I had when I was single and I was like, what's next in life is I want a relationship. I want a commitment of marriage. I want to have children because that is the greatest way for me to grow as an individual. And that makes sense. And so for some people, it's just a fundamental belief that some have and some don't, for whatever reason, based on whatever your upbringing is. And if your number one priority in life is to have fun, to have a good time, to be single, to experience freedom, quote unquote, whatever that means, then yeah, it makes sense you're not going to have kids, right? So if we peel that back and it's like, oh, my priority is I want to grow spiritually, emotionally. And if that's the case, I'm going to have kids and I'm going to marry and I'm going to do it young like I did. Okay, so that's number 3. Get married young, have kids young. You will never regret it. Now, this is absolutely the case for me. I was married when I was 18 years old. We had our first child when I was 22 years old, okay? When we had our child, my thought at the time was, it's a hard decision for anyone to make, right? Because it eternally changes your life. It really does. But my thought was exactly this. This is exactly what my wife and I were thinking. If we decide to not have kids, we will regret it for our entire lives. If we decide to have kids, we will never regret it, ever. And we never have, right? And so that's kind of my logic behind that. Number 4, find a spouse that shares your values. That's it. Everything else is optional, okay? Again, this is something that I talk endlessly about here on the podcast, is that if you find a spouse that, number 1, first and foremost, shares your value system surrounding the blessing and true parents and God and raising a family inside your faith, then that is the only thing that actually matters, and everything else is completely optional. Nice to haves, if you will. But because my wife and I have shared our common vision and values for our entire marriage together, our entire blessing together, it has worked out. And I'm totally happy about it, even though we're very different in character and everything else. Number 5, find a spouse that you are comfortable being yourself around. This is kind of an anecdotal thing that if I was to talk to my old self, or when I'm talking with young guys or gals who are preparing for matching and blessing, I think it's an important thing. Like, do you feel comfortable talking with this person? It's a good indicator that it's a good match. It's a good situation. I feel comfortable, not just like, oh, I feel comfortable goofing around and being myself. I mean it in a more deeper sense, in the sense that I feel comfortable being seen for who I am, with all my flaws, all my mistakes, all my flawlessness, non-flawlessness, all the things that come up for me in this relationship, and being honest about that and not being afraid of conflict. I think that's a good relationship, and I think that's a spouse that's worth keeping. All right, number 6, your number 1 priority in marriage is growth, not happiness. Happiness will come with growth. Now, this is also backwards, like I just mentioned, in the sense that people often chase happiness as the primary goal, but as we know, people are often left unfulfilled, and this comes in the form of marriage, relationships, sex, money, career, everything. If you're chasing happiness itself, or what you perceive is happiness, then most times you're left unfulfilled because it's not based in something deep and meaningful, which is growth. Number 7, your job as a parent. We're getting to parenting now. Your job as a parent is simple: to love and to teach. Now, this is actually a quote that True Parents gave that I read way before I had kids, and it stuck with me all these years. You are your children's greatest friend and their greatest teacher. And I have branded that and etched it into the forefront of my mind many, many years before I even became a parent. Is when I become a parent, my greatest mission is to love them and to teach them, which means you can be firm and loving. I can be stern and loving at the same time. I can be playful and loving and teach them all at the same time. It doesn't have to be a one or the other thing. And it's sometimes the case where my wife is more of the teaching type and I'm more of the loving, embracing type. And sometimes usually I'm the more teaching, disciplinary type in our family, and my wife is the more embracing and loving type. It's a balance, right? And so my goal is always to be their greatest friend, which means that they want to spend time with me. They want to share what they did today. They want to share what they're experiencing. They want to share their Lego creations. They want to spend every moment they can with me. And I'm their greatest teacher. When they need support and mentorship and guidance, I'm a captain of their ship, and I'm directing this ship for their lives, okay? Number 8, work hard. It's one of the few things that you can control. I am not about the victimhood mindset. I am someone that is going to work hard no matter what and take full ownership and responsibility for the outcomes of my life. So I believe this 100%. Number 9, learn to invest money now. It takes only a few hours of concentrated learning that will yield a lifetime of financial peace of mind. Guys, I was one of those guys that was like, when I started, working and making a full-time income when I was 20, 21, 22, I was afraid to invest because number one, sounded scary. And also number two, it sounded risky. And I was not willing to learn how to invest because I didn't want to be a risky investor with my money. But then I put one foot in the door, one toe in the water. And I learned very quickly that if you do nothing with your money, in other words, you just stash cash, you just save cash and put it under your bed or in your sock, in your drawer. If you were to do that, my friends, you are actually making a riskier investment because inflation will eat up your cash. And when I learned that, I was like, man, the riskiest thing for me to do is actually to do nothing. It's kind of like you're in a river. And the riskiest thing in a raving river to do is to not swim because you will drown. You will be overturned by the waves and by the rapids. So what I learned is that I need to invest because if I don't, it's actually more risky. So I just learned some very, very simple long-term investing strategies. That's very, very simple. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, you can literally spend, like I said, just a few hours to learn how to invest money in a safe and a very surefire way that will yield you a lifetime of dividends and financial peace of mind. So that's what I did in my 20s, and I'm eternally grateful that I did. Number 10, save and invest every dollar you can in your 20s. At least 50% of your income, you'll be grateful you did. This is something that I did when I was in my 20s. Really grateful I did. It's something I just prioritize. I learned how to invest. I was smart with my money, and I saved it as much as I could, and I invested. Okay, so there you go. Why am I talking about money, guys? Like I said before, for me, having peace of mind is so, so valuable. And it's not just about having money to just do whatever you want. It's about having the peace of mind that I don't have to be scared or uncertain or fearful of any outcomes in life because I know that I'll always be okay and I'll be able to provide for my family and for my loved ones and for my wife and for my kids without any worry in the world. And that peace of mind is absolutely 100% worth just studying for a few hours, or a day and just learn how to do it. It'll yield you guys a lifetime of peace of mind that is absolutely worth doing. Number 11, don't worry too much about pursuing meaningful work. You can create meaning in any work that you decide to do. Just make sure you work. Just make sure you do the work. Now, this is coming from a guy, myself, that spent so much of my life pursuing meaningful work. As soon as I turned 20, 21 years old, I started working in New York City, really following my passion, my dream. And I have until this day, to be honest. But I realized after talking with many people that have not done that, for example, I was talking with one guy, and he works packaging stuff, right? And he's a manager for some packaging company. And I was asking him about his work, and he was so lit up about his work. He was so passionate and convicted about packaging stuff. And he was talking about his teammates and how much, he's learning from how to teach them about how to package stuff, right? And I was so bored in this conversation. It was so boring to me, but I realized is that it's so meaningful to him. And I was like, man, that's so fantastically beautiful, is that you can have something that's so boring and mundane as packaging stuff and find so much meaning in it. It's important to him. It's good work. And he sees it as a way to provide funds and finances for his family, right? And for his kids. And I thought that was beautiful. So don't worry too much about pursuing meaningful work. You can create meaning in any work that you do. I really think that's true. Yeah. Number 12, when thinking of a career, ask yourself the question, what group of people do I want to serve? Make that your career and your mission. Now, this is something that I came up when I was first, coming out of college. It's like there's like a million one directions you can go down in life. Like you can get a job, you can get into sales, you can do self-employment, you could just fundraise your whole life, you can whatever, like there's literally endless options. You start a business, you can whatever. And I had to boil it down because there has to be more to it than just choosing the closest, lowest hanging fruit opportunity available or whatever makes the most money. So I asked myself this important question is what group of people do I want to serve? Because that helps narrow it down. Because then it's like, okay, for example, do you want to serve the members of our movement? What specific members, what kind of members? The young people, the older folks, the Japanese members in Japan or in Korea, whoever it is, right? In Africa, do you want to serve in the area of matching and blessing education or witnessing or CARP? Do you want to serve a nonprofit? Like, is there a specific cause that you feel called to serve? Or are there organizations or companies that are doing that cause? And can you work for them and just first of all, I recommend that you just contact them and just say, hey, I want to volunteer my time. I have this and this skill set, and I love what you do. Please accept my volunteerism. I will work for free and I will do a good job. If you do work really hard, guys, and you become indispensable to them, as in you have your own projects that you're working on, and if they got rid of you, it would mean bad business. You could say, hey, I've been serving you guys for a year or 3 years or something, and I've done this and this and this. I think it's time for me to move on to something else. I would love it if we could continue this relationship and I can work for you guys, part-time or full-time, give them an offer and see how that goes, right? If you become indispensable to them and they love you, yeah, they're going to consider you, right? So there you go. That's what I would do if I was trying to find a job at a specific company or organization of individuals that are doing God's work that you want to be a part of, all right? Number 13, follow a career path that you have conviction in. Money will follow. There's this fallacy going around that there's only specific types of work or jobs or career paths that yield finances, right? For number one, it's like you should define how much is financial peace of mind. Like how much money do you feel like you want to make in order to have a stable life and lifestyle that you want, right? And chances are it doesn't require you to become an engineer or doctor or dentist or lawyer just to make that money, right? So yeah, I would say just follow a career path that you have conviction in, you believe in, and course correct as you go. Don't be stuck in like, I'm going to do this my entire life. I think that's never a wise idea. Course correct as you go, and money will follow you if you work hard and you're creative and you study and you figure out how to learn how to make money through your career. All right. 14, making money is easier than you think. Don't fall for the trap of following a career path because it makes good money, quote unquote. You will be miserable if you don't have conviction in your work. Yeah, I mean, it sounds silly and obvious, guys. I know, but it's a trap so many people fall into, is just following what makes good money. All the people at my university are getting engineering degrees or going into consulting or contracting, and that sounds like a good path. Whatever. Okay, that's my 2 cents on that. Number 15, don't worry too much about finding your life mission. It's reasonable to take decades to figure that out. Just take action in one direction that sounds right and course correct as you go. Now, I say this because I talk very, very frequently with men and women who are struggling with how to figure out, they're in their early 20s or late 20s, and they're figuring out what their mission is, or like what they feel called by God and by Spirit to accomplish in their life. And that's fine. And that's a wonderful thing to consider. It's noble. It's amazing. However, what gets people trapped is they're afraid to take a step because they're afraid of making the wrong decision. They're afraid of going down a path that doesn't yield the results that they want. And so they don't do anything for years. All right. It's reasonable, guys, that it will take decades, if not longer, until your 40s or 50s to really figure out and have 100% conviction that this is why I'm here. It'll take a long time to really get there. So what I recommend is that you just take action and where your heart feels like is the right direction, where you feel like God is guiding you or imploring and supporting you to go, take action, go in that direction that seems right, and be open to course correct as you go. Because chances are, as you go down that path, you will learn the skills, you will make the connections, you will build relationships, you will develop the character traits, and you will work on flaws that you have to the point where whatever you do next, you can transfer those beautifully and seamlessly into another path. And that's usually how careers develop, all right? Number 16, your mission in life doesn't have to be your career. Ooh, interesting. Your mission in life doesn't have to be your career. You can have a regular job and also have a mission. They don't have to be the same thing. All right. I don't know. Maybe this is obvious for some people, but for me, it was not for many years. I always thought like I have to work full time doing my absolute best to do a mission. If that was the case, then nobody would be like, who would do the Amazon deliveries, guys? Like who would do the packaging? Who would be the grocery store workers? Who would be the Uber drivers? Like we need all of that in Channel. We need everything, but we also need everybody to contribute in their own way to their mission, to our collective vision that True Parents have set in this new providence, right? Number 17, God comes first. Maybe I should have put this first. God comes first. Everything makes more sense when God is first. Hallelujah. This is just like, if you really think about this before every decision, every thought process, every conversation, every decision you make, God comes first. What is God's perspective? What does God need? Everything in life makes more sense. I wish I could have told myself that more when I was younger. Number 18, always be curious about spiritual things, especially the blessing and True Parents. Who are they? Never stop seeking answers. For some reason, when we get older, we lose the childlike ability to just be curious about, why is it that God made this like this? Why is the world like this? And what happens is people are not genuinely curious. They're skeptical and they're cynical. And they say, oh, it's just evolution and this is why, without a genuine concern to look at the hundreds of thousands and millions of people, guys, who have had spiritual experiences. I'm telling you, like, people are having very, very similar experiences with spirit world. And you start to wonder why everyone is having the same experience. When they go to spirit world or have near-death experiences, they say that they feel unconditional love of God. Like, why is everyone talking about the same thing? And you're going to go ahead and say that this is just coincidence and everything's an accident. Come on. Have some curiosity. Have some genuine skepticism, which means that you will research and you will find out for yourself and not just write everything off as crazy and everyone insane, right? I was talking with this young guy. He's a second generation, BC. And we were talking about spirit world. And I asked him, like, what is your belief in God and spirit world? And he's like, very kindly said to me, well, I think that it's, basically it's justification. It's just people rationalizing the existence of spirit world and God because it helps them live a good life, right? And he was very kind about it. And I was like, that's very interesting. And I asked him, so when you go to spirit world, when you die at the end of your life, right? How sad would it be if you lived your entire life for 70, 80, 90 years with this belief at the back of your mind that all of the spirit world is unreal and God is not real? And you went to spirit world and you learned that you were wrong. How sad would you be? Not that you were wrong, but that you were not curious to even spend a little bit of time to talk with people, to be curious, to ask questions, to interview people, to ask, why do you believe these things, and look for your own spiritual experiences. How sad would that be, right? And of course, he has to go through his own process of understanding spiritual, right? But I'm saying this because we lose the childlike ability to be curious about spiritual things, especially in a world that is very, very much superficial and external. Never stop seeking answers, no matter what. No matter what. What you think is the truth is probably just a drop of sand, a speck of sand, a drop in an ocean of truth. What you understand is not the entire story of what is going on, all right? And always have that in mind and eye when you're looking at things. Number 19, don't fall for the trap that enslaves most people, which is to prioritize external things over internal things. Guys, I am guilty of this. I 100% am. My default life being who I am is an external person. And I had to make this switch. Thankfully, my wife is the opposite. She's more of an internal person and less of an external person, right? But we balance each other out. And thankfully, I married someone when I was young who told me, Benji, I think what you are focusing on is not important. This is more important. And at first we butted heads and I said, but what about this? What about this? But I'm fully 120% convinced now that internal comes first. Why? And that's number 20. Be excellent. Internally and externally. Internal is more important because why? Because it is who you are. It's who you are. And everything you do as who you are will dictate and inform everything else that is external. Because who you are comes first. Yeah. Number 21. You can't give more than you have. You can't. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't love if you don't feel loved yourself. It will break you. Focus on filling yourself, filling your cup, and you will have more to give. This is wise. 22. Make big decisions with this question. What is the loving thing to do? Or what will make me a more loving person? Doing so will make decisions more clear. And I've talked about this quite a bit here on the podcast. If you're deciding career, spouse to get married to, blessed with, matching process to pursue or not pursue, or whatever life decision you have, ask yourself through that calculus, what is the loving thing to do? And chances are it'll be more clear, because ultimately what matters is the experience that we have on earth. Number 23, find specific mentors for specific things you're working on. Benji, find specific mentors. There's no one that has all the answers to everything, including your own parents. I'm just kidding. So find specific mentors. Don't expect people to have one person to have the answers to everything. One person might have experience in one area and someone else in another. You can't expect your parents to have all the answers to everything, finance and spiritual and career and everything, right? Maybe, unless there's some superhuman people. Number 24, go to church. Go to church. Not because you have to, because you want to, and because it keeps you centered on what really matters. It refocuses you. It recalibrates you to what's really important in your life, your spirituality. Number 25, study God's word. Study it for the same reasons as before. It keeps you centered. Number 26, consistency beats intensity. This goes for fitness, business, relationships, money, and spiritual growth. The reason it's important to look at your progress in life, to go back and ask yourself, how am I doing now compared to before? The reason celebrating progress is important is not what you think. It's not to celebrate and say, oh, look at me, look how great I'm doing. It's actually to know with confidence that what I'm doing is working or not working. That's why it's important. And to paint a picture of this a little more, I was talking with a guy who's struggling with a porn addiction, right? He's struggling with his sexual integrity. And he was feeling kind of down on himself, feeling like, oh, I haven't progressed. I'm still at square one. I haven't really grown much. And I asked him, so it's summertime right now. You're at home. Last summer when you were at home, tell me about your struggle then. He's like, well, I was struggling every day. And it was hard for me to go a day without, acting out, slipping up. And I was like, do you see the progress you've made? And he's like, yeah, I don't feel like that anymore. And I asked him, why is it important to see your progress and to recognize your progress? And he said, oh, because it's important to celebrate, victories. I was like, no, that's not the main reason. The main reason is because you have confidence that what you're doing is working or it's not working. In the case, if you're digressing, but in the case that you are progressing, it means what you're doing is working. And my friend, you should keep doing it. You should keep going because eventually you will look back and you will wonder, wow, I have grown. 27, find exercises that you enjoy to do and do that 2 or 3 times a week. Don't do exercises that you hate. Interesting. This again kind of backs up the previous statement. It's more important to do consistency. If you do exercises that you hate, there's a very high likelihood that you won't continue to do it. So just find exercises you enjoy, even though they might not be the absolute best exercises on paper. It's better to do something than nothing. For example, everyone says, if you look up what are the best compound movement exercises to do, everyone will say pull-ups and deadlifts, especially deadlifts. The problem is I hate doing deadlifts. I really very much dislike doing deadlifts. I had a bad experience with deadlifts. Every time I do it, I get really stressed and anxious about doing it. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just not going to do deadlifts. I'm just going to do the fitness exercises at the gym that I enjoy doing, and that's it. Also, I don't like running. Sue me. I don't like running, and I think everyone that's running is a little crazy. And every time I see someone running, I go, wow, I'm so glad I'm not running right now. That's honestly how I feel. But if you do run, God bless you. I still love you sometimes. Okay. No, that's just an example. I enjoy doing volleyball and swimming and that kind of stuff. So I do that kind of stuff instead. Number 28, eat all the food you want and enjoy it. By the way, guys, again, this is me talking to myself 21 years ago. So if you have judgment or whatever, keep it in your own mouth. Eat all the food you want and enjoy it. But just make sure you exercise more, eat less quantity, or do both. All right? There's something about me, when it comes to food and diet, I hate the idea of just not being able to eat something. If I want to eat something, I'm going to eat it. I dread this idea of becoming an old man. I'm like, oh, I really want this pizza. I really want that Haagen-Dazs ice cream, but I'm on this diet and I can't with you guys. I hate that. It kills me inside. It makes me want to crawl out of my skin and anyways. So my point is, talking to my younger self again, eat all you want and enjoy it. But big caveat here, you have to either exercise more, which is harder to do, by the way, or eat less quantity. You can still eat the foods you enjoy, but eat less of it, or do both, and you'll have a good balance, okay? So there you go. 29, travel as much as you can, but do it on a budget. All right. It gets harder to travel when you have more responsibilities, like a wife, work, kids, etc. And eventually you get old, from what I've been told, and you don't want to travel at all. That's what I've heard from people in their 40s and 50s. They just don't want to travel, right? Because it's tempting to think, I'm in my 20s, I got to save. When I'm in my 30s and 40s and 50s, 60s, 70s, then I'll travel the world. But what I've experienced with talking with people is that, number one, when you're in your 30s, you generally have more responsibilities, so you don't travel as much, or it's harder to travel. 40s, 50s, 60s, you're getting older, and you just prefer to stay home. That's what I've been told. So if I could go back, I would encourage myself to travel more. Just do it on a budget, go with some friends, do whatever you can, just get out. Number 30, occasionally think back to yourself 10 years ago. I'm talking to you guys right now. Think back to yourself 10 years ago and impart some wisdom of your own. Doing this will give you gratitude and perspective. It will give you gratitude and perspective. Number 31, everything will work out. Relax. Enjoy the ride. All right, everyone. Those are my 31 life lessons from 31 years of age. I have a lot more to go. I don't want to stand here and sit here and pretend like I have all the life lessons figured out. I absolutely do not. If you can tell from my lessons, I'm always learning. Like, I don't know if you guys know that about me. I'm the first one to look at I'll watch this video 5 times probably and be like, picking apart what I said wrong and did wrong and should have done. So I'm my best critic or worst critic. Please make your own list, and I'll catch you later. Bye.